All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. When I talk to couples about money, when I talk to them about life, there are usually goals, there are usually things that they are working towards. And it could be something that they are both super passionate about, or it could be something that just one person is passionate about. Today, I've invited Lachlan Stuart, a life coach and keynote speaker, onto the show to talk about this topic, but also to relate it to something massive that is just literally done. Lachlan, thank you so much for joining us.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a blast.
Mate, I agree, because when I read 58 marathons across 58 states in 58 days, I literally had to reread it again because I was like, wait, that doesn't. And then first I was like, how is that even possible? And then I started watching some of the content and the media that's come out about it, and the videos online, and I was like, wow, like that's a massive that's a massive achievement, and it's something where I know for a fact that you potentially maybe you could have tried to do it by yourself, but it wasn't. From what it sounds like, it would have been a bit of a team effort. And if you could maybe start with that and just explain how that even started and the story behind it, and because it's not every day that somebody just wakes up and says, "Hey, I'm just going to run 58 marathons in 58 days."
Yeah, it definitely wasn't something that I just woke up one day and thought, let's do 58 marathons. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee with my wife in 2023 and 2024, like the end of 2023. And I'd found myself sort of having an itch that I needed to scratch. I wasn't able to work over there. And I was looking for ways to keep myself busy and build on things that I've been doing in my career. And for the previous decade with that, I had been doing charity fundraisers that had been linked with fitness challenges. And every year, the fundraising goal increased, and so did the intensity of the challenge. So naturally, as I'm looking around, I stumbled across the 50 States Marathon Challenge, which is a challenge that athletes spend their whole life training to complete. And, only around 1,000 people have ever completed it over the course of their career. And that excited me. I looked at that. I was like, that looks pretty awesome. I could do that here on the visa that I'm doing. It's not going to get me kicked out of the country. And as I looked a little bit further, I noticed that only one person in history had done it in 50 consecutive days. And then there was another gentleman who I was fortunate enough to become mates with who had done it as Ironman. And I was like, cool, I could be in like an elite club here, and that could really generate a great story to showcase what mental health is about. And as I looked further, no one had done it in winter. And that to me was like, this really excites me because it was so outrageous as I was thinking about it. And there was a lot of doubt in my mind around whether it was possible. But the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. And I realized if we were to run in winter, that would be able to showcase what it feels like for some people with their mental health. Winter represents where it's tough to get out of bed. You maybe feel like you're not making progress. It's isolating. And then I knew we would fly back to Australia, and that would represent summer, right? Summer's where we do want to bounce out of bed. We want the sun on our back. We're with our friends drinking margaritas. And I thought, what a cool story that we could tie in to show people that, bring people along and raise some funds, and also get to have this personal adventure where I get to see what I'm truly capable of, because that question has always been in the back of my mind. And I'm sure, Michael, some of your listeners, whether they're in individuals or couples, they're thinking, yeah, I'm curious to see what I'm capable of, whether it's financially or the experiences that I could have, or even from a health perspective. And as that got bigger, I could not stop thinking about it. And I knew the most important conversation I had to have was with my wife, because if she didn't support it or she wasn't on board with it, it just was never going to get legs to become a reality. And when I told her about it the first time, she just gave me this look, and I'm sure people know what that look is, where it's just like, you're crazy and that is not happening. And so I went away from that and I was like, okay, that's fair. Like, I understand that. I'm not going to jeopardize my marriage to chase something, but I could not stop thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I started writing things down, looking at what it would look like to do the 58. Like, what would I have to get my head around? Like, firstly, I don't ever run 4 marathons in my life. So I'm like, oh, wow. Like, is that possible for the body to do? What would it look like from a recovery standpoint? How much food would I have to eat? Like, all of these things would come into place. Like, how would we tell the story on social media, or would we make a documentary? Who would my crew be? What would we do if we missed a flight? What would we do if we got stuck in a snowstorm? What would we do if we got injured? And the more I dug into this, the more answers I got and the more clarity I got. And then I just went back to my wife again one morning and said the same thing. I was like, I have to do this. And she turned to me and said, I know you do. You're driving me mad, for one. But secondly, it would be hypocritical of me to expect you to move halfway around the world to support me with my goals and me not to support you with yours. And in that moment, Michael, not only did I get her like approval, but I also had her belief, because she did say, if anyone's crazy enough to pull this off, it's you. And that for me was just like, green light. Let's see what we can turn this into.
And when you mentioned, you being capable of it, can I ask you, did you, because first of all, I'm assuming that winters in the US are different to winters in Australia. So it's freezing a lot
Yeah.
more than it is here. And secondly, did you actually think you were capable of it? Like, was it one of those things where you're like, nah, I could do this? Or were you like, oh, you know what? I don't know if I can, but I'm just going to give it a red hot go.
No, I definitely did not think I could do it. I had an immense amount of doubt. And for context for everyone else, so the last challenge I'd done previous to that was a Guinness World Record, and I'd rode 30 marathons in 30 days on a rowing machine. And so I'd always been stacking the growth and I guess getting little bits of evidence that I was capable of things. But for me, I'd only ever run 4 marathons. I'd never run a back-to-back marathon. So there was a lot of, I guess, where the doubt came in, there was unanswered questions. And the way to build confidence is to find a little bit more evidence or get answers on those. So I knew that if I put my mind to it, I could probably be resourceful enough and do the right things to put myself in a position to have a crack at it. And so when I was building this list that I mentioned before of like the marathons, what would it training feel like? I knew that I needed to get a coach, someone who could take that load off me, because I could coach myself to run a marathon, but I needed to focus on like getting sponsors and doing other things. So I got a coach, and one of the non-negotiables with my coach was that I have to do back-to-back marathon in training, not to do it more so from a physical standpoint, but just from my peace of mind. I wanted to know what it felt like the next day when you wake up and you're sore, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could get another marathon done in that moment. Because if I could do it once, I believed I could do it 58 times. And over the course of 14 months that we were building this out and we were training for it and making it happen, by the time I kicked off in Alaska, Michael, it was done. And I find it's so hard to get people to understand, because it was so far from my reality that I could make it happen. But because every day I did not skip a training session, we were traveling all around the US, right, with my wife's band. So there would be some nights we would finish a gig at 2 a.m. Like, we'd get home, get into bed. I would be up at 6, and then I'd be doing my training run before we're back on the road to the next state. And then there were times where I'd fly from Nashville, which to LA, which is a 5-hour flight. I would leave the airport in LA, and I went and did a 23-kilometer run one day then I had to come back to the airport and jump on a flight to Hawaii. So the benefit of me doing that, as much as it was an inconvenience, I knew that on the start line in Alaska, I had not skipped a session. I had not drunk alcohol for 14 months. I had essentially looked at this plan and not isolated areas to go, if I just train, everything else will figure it out. I knew that I had to integrate everything. I had to go, in order for this to work, I got to do my training 100%. I got to give the recovery 100%. I had to start a food eating plan, because I had to go from eating 2,000 calories a day to 6,500 calories a day. And you don't just do that, right? So I did a 16-week eating program to get up to speed. So by the time I started, I was comfortable eating that, because I didn't want to get sick in the tummy or anything like that. So I looked at all of these pieces, and I integrated them.
And would I be right? I mean, the common theme I'm getting as well from everything you've just explained is that there was a lot of preparation physically and, like physically, but a lot of it was mental. And I really like that similarity, the what's it called, a metaphor in a way that you gave, winter getting, when it's tough to get out of bed, summer coming back to Australia, and just the resilience needed to be able to do something like that. Because to me, I mean, I'd probably say the majority of it was mental, and it's something that there's probably someone that potentially could be fitter than you, but without the same resilience or without the same mental perspective, probably wouldn't have been able to do it. How much what percentage, if you had to give it a percentage, would you say did mental resilience play into you being able to achieve something like this?
I've been asked that question a lot, and if I'm being honest with people, it's 100% physical and it's 100% mental. Like, there's not a
Wow.
moment in time on that trip where you are relying on one more than the other because your body's the vehicle, right? If your body's broken down, you're not going to be able to drive it, and your mind's the driver. And you have to be intentional with both of those. So for me, because I got injured on day one, like I was carrying a lot of mental pressure, obviously, of expectation of self, sponsors, fundraising, etc. But then also the weight of the pain, like every step was shooting. Like my ankles were the size of baseballs after day five, and every step was shooting pain right up my legs. And I didn't know whether I had stress fractures or what was going on. So every step I'm taking, I'm battling myself, battling in my mind to be like, do you quit or do you keep going? And for me, that whole experience was 100% physical because my body had to go through the cold weather, running on ice, running on snow, running in rain, running in the heat. Like it had to, like, I'm so grateful for it because it was able to get through it. But also mentally, it would have been so easy. There were so many opportunities where I could have just listened to my mind and said, quit. So the whole time I was on, and my team saw this, and this is where team is so important and having a great team and the right people, but they knew this. So as soon as I finished, because in the morning, as soon as I woke up, I'm thinking about the run. I'm getting ready. I'm checking the weather. I'm starting to scout out a route that I'm going to run. So you're constantly on. Then when I would run the run, which would be anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, depending on the day and the conditions. Then when I finished, I was doing media or social media or, and then we would drive to the next state. So what the team saw was like, there's no switch off for Lockie. So they started taking my phone off me for the first hour after the run just to let my mind and body calm down. They would put me in the back of the van. We're in an RV, put me in the bed and put these leg sleeves on. So physically, I'm starting to recover. I've got food, and mentally, I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. I'm not allowed to, be on social media. It's just me where I can try and recover.
And to be honest with you, like when I heard about what you did, and before we spoke, I thought about the mental, I thought about the physical, and I thought, okay, these are two big things that I know are involved in any type of sport. Like I used to do long distance running in high school. It's actually probably the only sport I was ever good at. And, to me, I could relate to a lot of what you said, but there's something I didn't expect you to tell me was how important it was to get the support of your wife. It's, I mean, as a married man of, nearly 15 years now, when you said it to me, it was obvious to me. I was like, oh yeah, of course, you sort of you need to get the approval from your wife. But
Yeah.
it actually wasn't one of the first things I thought of. But it makes a lot of sense because it's like anything, like when somebody's starting a business or starting a new career or leaving their job, or investing money into a property or a business or anything, that support is important. Can I just ask you how the conversation happened? And I guess the level of understanding you both needed to be able to make that, to be on the same page, because I'm assuming for you, there's a level of, okay, I get this. I can't just expect her to agree to everything. And for her, it's also like what you said, he's done this for me. I should at least do the same for him.
Mm. So the conversation, it was really easy because I think one thing my wife and I do really well is we both have our individual careers, but we also have a collective goal of what the life that we're trying to build for ourselves. And what we understand with that is it's like the pendulum. And what I mean by that is there's times where I need to support, and then there's times where I'm leading, and vice versa. So when there's an opportunity where I want to step up and lead, and what I mean by that is me leading towards a goal that I have, she then is able to go, okay, it's time for me to support. And sometimes it's not always, like majority of the time, it's not always easy because there comes compromise and sacrifice, which is part of that. So one thing that we're speaking more publicly about now, but no one knew during the time, was we'd been struggling with infertility for 3 years, and literally 3 days before I went over to Mexico, we went to Mexico for Christmas before the run started. We decided we were going to do IVF. And sorry, we decided just before, but we did our first uh, egg retrieval for IVF. And because no one knew as a partner, I'm also thinking, oh crap, like I'm abandoning my wife, chasing a dream that we both believed, because my wife also believed that doing the 58 would help us continue building a better future, one where it would give us more family freedom, security, and choice. So the most important part was just making sure that along the way, she didn't feel like she wasn't part of that dream and wasn't part of that team. And it was really hard because we were balancing that. I hated the fact that I wasn't going to be there for the first embryo transfer. Like the most important thing in our life, in my opinion, at this point was that. And she was able to just say, Lockie, look, you'll be on FaceTime. Like you've just got to focus on this. And as long as we're FaceTiming every day and communicating and you're not doing anything stupid, that means you're not going to come back from this run, we'll be good. And so she sort of stood up to lead in that moment from that component. Whereas had we not had the buy-in, like me buying into her goals and dreams and making sacrifices, for example, moving halfway around the world, leaving my business back in Australia, she maybe wouldn't have felt confident and comfortable leading when it's like I'm, somewhere else doing the thing to chase my dream, where she sort of stood up and did that. And then because it was moving us towards that collective goal, does that make sense?
It does. And something you said to me, like something you've just said to me that really stands out is that having like buying into your goals and dreams, and to me, I mean, even when I talk to couples about these things, when one person really wants to do something, it's about that. It's about getting the other person to buy into their goals and dreams, and vice versa. Because something else you said that stands out a lot to me is that there's a time to support, and there's a time when you're leading. And I think that's true of any team, isn't it? It's when there's times you're there to support the other person and support what they're working towards, but then there's times when you're leading. Like, it's like, look, this is what I want to do. This is the direction I should head in. And to me, that relates a lot to couples. I feel like it relates a lot to even partnerships, or any partnership in general, but especially a relationship between two people, because yes, you surrounded yourself with the right experts and you had people around you, and there was 14 months of planning, but it sounds like this was sort of like the anchor in a way. Like you needed this to be able to do any of that.
It's not, nothing's worth, in my opinion, my belief is everything that I do outside of my marriage isn't worth it if the marriage isn't happy. For me, if I'm thinking, okay, this is the 58 marathons, yes, we're raising funds, I'm getting to see what I'm capable of, but why do I care about what I'm capable of if my marriage is falling apart? Like the most important thing is that. And because Amy is aware of that, and we, I call them daily deposits, but every day we're just doing these daily deposits to continue to make each other feel like we're the most important people on the planet in our relationship, then it affords us the opportunity to, I guess, withdraw some credit to go do the things that we're doing, like whether my wife's touring or I'm doing my things, because we have that trust and we have that respect. And we also know that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, when the spotlight's done, when the media's done, we come back to each other. And that's most important, even when you talk about finances. And I'm sure you experience that a lot, is a lot of couples aren't on the same page around what they want their financial life to look like. Sorry. So the goalposts are always moving with what they need to earn or what their expenses are and their outgoings or their assets and things like that. And my wife and I are very clear on what we want from that point of view as well. So if I guess if I look at our life, it's very unconventional to most people. We're very fortunate where we have time and are able to live our days where we do the things that we want. And if you looked at us on a bank balance, we're probably not the best people, but if I looked at our weeks as calendar in terms of the things that we get to do and experience, most people would probably choose what we do. And I say that because there's a lot of adventure, spontaneity, fun things, experiences that a lot of people are actually working for anyway.
These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au. Yeah, I love that. And this is coming from someone that does, the impression I get is that both your lives are crazy. Both your lives are intense. There's there's never like a day you're both sitting at home watching Netflix. I mean, there probably could be here and there, but it's not like, it sounds like your lives are nonstop. But what you just said, I think, is gold, because you're literally, you're highlighting the fact that at the end of the day, with everything that's going on, the central thing should be each other, and it should be your relationship and your family, and that's something my wife and I, we always have to remind ourselves of that. And I talk to clients about it, and it's massive, because like, what's the point of working 90 hours a week for your family if you don't see your family, if you're not supporting your family, if you're not communicating with your family, or even being there for your family? It's money is great, but money's just money. There's obviously 100 other things which are more important. And but I think it's important to always remind yourself of that, because especially when, anyone especially someone that's ambitious, I'm pretty ambitious. So I need to, my wife really grounds me a lot. And that's, to me, that's massive. And it's always like, Michael, just chill, just relax. Like, it's like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I need that as well. So it's important to always have that support. And like what you said, to support when there's times to support, and lead when there's times to lead. So yeah, it's like, as you're explaining all this to me, I'm like, yes. And you're a perfect example of it, just because, both of you are pretty, like, your schedules are intense. Even organizing today wasn't, a walk in the park. And
Nah.
it's hats off to both of you, and obviously I know it's a lot harder than what it sounds as well. But yeah, and can I ask, like, even just talking about this topic, if there's someone listening to this and let's say they're in a similar position where they've got something they've been wanting to achieve, or something they're trying to achieve, but their partner's literally not on the same page, what advice would you give? And what are some talking points, or just, what are some things that maybe you learnt, or that you're both continuing to learn from this whole experience in your relationship, that you can pass on, or maybe some nuggets of gold?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if I reflect upon that, what most of us are wanting in our relationship is to feel valued, seen, and heard. And that, was going from me. And I feel if I didn't get the opportunity to do this, I wouldn't have felt valued, or it just even heard, right? And it would have always been in the back of my mind. And maybe that would have led to some resentment if it hadn't have happened, where I'm like, well, I'm doing this, we're over here and you're not letting me have a crack at this. And I believe in it. The thing that I feel had helped was, this wasn't just a random wake up, I'm going to do something crazy like this. It had been a part of who I'd been since I known Amy. So there had always been these things that I was building towards. So she understood that when I did say, hey, this will lead to a better future for us, and it's important to me. She knew that, because I had plenty of evidence stacked behind me that this just wasn't an ad hoc thought. And I think that's really important. If we go back to the relationship being the central nucleus, what the most important thing in the relationship is obviously the health, honesty, and clarity. So if I look at individuals, I believe we should be strong in body, calm in mind, clear on purpose, and confident in life. And so the individuals that we need to tick those boxes, because it's going to make the marriage stronger. When the marriage is stronger, then the world, like our world, becomes stronger. And so when we're looking at conversations on how do we get our partner on board, if you're becoming the person who embodies that and amplifies the thing that you want, and your partner is doing the same, and you include them and you make them feel included, like, we're a team here. The role that I'm playing, the only role that I can do in this is that. And the role that I would love you to be playing in this role, if you wanted to get on board with it, would be this. And this is why it's important for us to play these roles, and the outcome that it's going to move us towards for our life, not my life, for our life.
I like that. And also, I know there's a few things that you've talked about before when it comes to life. Like there's like the different like seven domains of life,
Yes.
and and if you can maybe just talk about that a bit as well. And I know that you've got a way for people to sort of measure that and to assess their own domains of life and see where they sit.
Yeah, so the seven domains came off the back of having success on paper, but still feeling unfulfilled. And it's something with a lot of the clients that I work with, they're in that position. They've done everything that they were told to do, and life should seemingly be good, but it's not feeling fulfilled. And when we like do an audit of why, we need to look at all areas because it's all integrated. It's not isolated. So the belief that if we have career success, the rest of our life will take care of itself is complete rubbish. That's why we see a lot of wealthy people who are on their third marriages. They're, obese. They don't have social lives and they're just not happy. So when we can address and understand that there are multiple domains to our life, how do they integrate? Meaning, how does having a great financial life improve my marriage? How does my marriage and having goals there improve my financial life or my social life? How does my physical health improve my mindset? And we can start going, okay, well, as we understand how they're connected and we can build evidence in our life, we can then start going, okay, well, if I was to score these out of 10, what would I score my health right now? And people might say a 6. And we go, okay, but why would you rate that a 6? And we have to start defining that for ourselves because good physical health for me, Michael, might look different to you based on how I live my life, what I'm interested in. Same with finances, right? Like I'm sure with all the people that you work with, they don't all have the same financial goal. I know a lot of people think $1 million is the thing, but I'm sure as you're working with people, how they want to live their life, what's important to them, is very, very different. And so the plan to get there is very, very different. And so the seven domains is no different. I prioritize lifestyle more than I do my career. I could definitely, I guess, work 80 hours a week doing what I want to do, but I wouldn't have my marriage. I wouldn't be able to train every day. I wouldn't have the experiences and adventures that I have. And that's not important to me. So when I say what's a 10 look like in my lifestyle, this is it. So what do I need my finances to look like in order to make that a reality? What do I need the quality of my marriage to look like in order to make that a reality? Does that make sense?
So much sense. So much sense. And it's like a lot of us when we focus on something, like when we're working really hard on our health, for example, we might neglect our relationship or neglect our finances, or when we're focusing really well on our finances and our business and our mission, and maybe our mindset will sometimes neglect our health and
Hmm.
lifestyle. So it's true, and it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's so hard to, well, it may not be hard, but it's very uncommon to get it all right, I should say. It's because I mean, I don't know about you, but I struggle to focus on more than one thing at once. I
Yeah.
can, but when I'm zoned in as well.
Yeah.
You know,
But
um,
I think just quickly to add to that, it's challenging in the beginning because quite often what we don't understand, we have to make up for in work ethic or hours. So it takes a lot more time than what it would 10 years down the track, for example, of experience, feedback, and understanding how it works for you. So if we initially look at health and someone doesn't really understand nutrition, training, and they also maybe have to get themselves into shape, it's a lot different to someone who does understand health, fitness, and is just in maintenance mode. The intensity and the sacrifice that it requires to maintain. Does that make sense? So over time, if you were to look at all the areas, and let's say everyone's average score across all seven areas is a 3, we're not looking to take them to a 10. My thing would, what I would recommend is like, okay, what does it look like to move them all to a 4? And which one of the seven is the most important that if you were to move it to a 4 first, is going to potentially lift the other ones up with it? And that way, what happens as we're building a 4, we're learning new skills, we're becoming more efficient, okay, and we're understanding how to build it into our lifestyle so it becomes more of our identity than just something that we do. And so over time, as we go from a 4 to a 5 to a 6, and I don't ever believe we achieve a 10 because life's constantly changing and evolving. But as long as we're progressing, we will become more efficient. It is easier, like you and your what you understand about money and generating wealth and all of that is probably it's easy for you to have a conversation with someone and go, this is what we could do, as opposed to maybe a decade ago, you had to think a little bit more about it.
It's true, and something, yeah. And that is an interesting way to look at it because you're right. If someone's, for example, if their mental health is a 0 or a 1, or a 2, that affects everything in that circle or in that, in that set, and as soon as that improves, then it does push the other things up usually, because sometimes that could be the thing that's holding them down. And same with relationship. If someone's relationship isn't strong, that could be affecting, that would probably then affect mental health, and which then affects everything else. And yeah, I like that. I like that. And something that that you mentioned earlier that I really picked up on is the only way you are able to achieve 58, 50, it's still crazy as I say, 58 marathons across 58 states in 58 days is by surrounding yourself with the right people. Like you mentioned that you had a team, you mentioned the support of your wife, you mentioned you had people that were watching you mentally, people that were watching you physically. And to me, that brings home. And you had a coach, you said that you mentioned that you're able to probably coach yourself, but you still had someone there. And to me, that also just reminds me of the importance of having people there in your corner, supporting you and surrounding yourself with the right team, and the right support as well.
Yeah, it's crucial. Whether you're doing it from a place of your life has to change and people call that rock bottom, or even if you're in a place in your life where things are going well, I still think you need a coach because all of us have blind spots. And in order for us to continue getting better, which is what I think life is ultimately about, like there is so much satisfaction that comes from facing adversity and overcoming adversity because you're proving to yourself that you're capable of more and that builds your confidence. You learn new things. It's exciting as much as maybe through the storm, you're like, I don't want to be here, but it does help us grow. And that's where for me, I'm focused on so many things, but it's grateful. I have my wife who can call me out on certain things, or I have friends, or I have my PT or my business coach who are just like, these are the things that you're ignoring at the moment. And if you were to start focusing on that, you would get a better result. And over time, you'll become more efficient at it. And even though in the moment, you're going to have to really focus on it and maybe make a couple of sacrifices, in the long term, it's going to pay off towards helping you build the life that you want.
And just on the point of the scorecard as well, could you maybe bring up, just explain that a bit to those listening to this? Because I feel like it's something that everyone needs to read, and to expose themselves to, because it is important. Because the blind spot, I've really liked that analogy as well, because I'm probably going to start using it, because you're right. I could have the most smartest client. I've got some clients that are accountants, for example, so that,
Yeah.
financially they know their stuff, but they still need someone there. And the analogy of the blind spot is massive, because you could be the best race car driver, but you can still have a blind spot. There could be still things that you could miss while driving. And I think it's the same thing with money, with health, with life, with everything.
Definitely. And so the reason why I built the scorecard was just to give people some quick wins. So when I think about where I am and where I want to be, there's always a gap. Everyone has it because we're always wanting more. And it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't matter whether it's financially, from a health perspective, or experiences, there's a gap. And the great thing about being able to identify the gap is now we know what has to happen, or we can at least create a bit of a roadmap to get there. And then we can look at timeframes, etc. And so the biggest thing that I've noticed, not only in my own life, but with people that I've worked with, and I've worked with over 1,000 men over the last decade, is that we don't audit our reality. We just have a guess that this is where I'm at. And it's really hard to build a solid foundation off, I guess, a sandy base. So the idea of this scorecard is to help you understand where you're leading your life and where you're sort of drifting. And so many of us don't realize that until it costs us our health or our marriage or, even our businesses. So it's important to get clear on that. And this assessment takes less than 5 minutes. It's free, and you'll go through questions around each area, and it will give you an overall score, but then it'll also give you a score in each domain, and it'll then recommend some things that you can do to start making some improvements on that. And the cool thing for people is they'll go, wow, I didn't even realize that my relationship was, not in the best spot. because of the way that the questions that are asked to people. And then it just goes, cool. Well, if I know that I need to improve my relationship, what do? I understand I'm here. What would it look like to move it to here? And then we can create some actions that people can then start putting into their life to start improving their relationship. So the thing that I think is most important about it is you don't have to leave it to the last minute, meaning your wife's just said or your partner's just said, hey, I'm done. You can get on top of that before it happens.
Yeah. Or even, or maybe someone knew that there was an issue, but they've just ignored it, or put it off or didn't want to talk about it as well. So yeah, I like that. And what I'll do is I'll put the link to your website in the description of this podcast and the scorecard. Maybe I'll just do both, even though the scorecard's probably on your website, but I'll do both.
Yeah.
And also, can I just ask, like, finally, what's for yourself? What's the next thing that you're working on, or would like to work on moving forward in the future, or things for people listening to this to watch out for? And lastly, if they wanted to get in contact with you, is the website probably the best way to do that?
Yeah, everything's on the website. So the most important thing for anyone is do the scorecard, because quite often you'll be able to make some changes without needing to work with me. And I would just love to give people stuff that they can do themselves for free, because I think, you get some small wins, awesome. And if not, if it's like alarming and you're wanting to do some stuff, you'll understand how my coaching works and what that could look like by going through the scorecard. And you'll obviously get some emails after that that give you plenty of coaching videos and stuff in small bite-sized chunks. So that way, then if you're still like, oh, I want help, I can. Otherwise, you'll be like, awesome, Lockie's helped me here, which is great. So then website, then the only other things that I'm working on are three important things. One, finishing my book, which is about the 58 marathons and just lessons that I learned and cool stories that we had along the way. And that's coming out early February, along with the documentary. So we took that documentary crew along because we wanted to showcase what it's really like trying to achieve something in the conditions that we did. And obviously there was this underlying battle, and I think everyone can relate to this, is that we're all going through something that many people don't know anything about. And for my wife and I, was just the IVF battle. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to achieve raising $100,000 for mental health and achieving a world first thing. So you'll see a lot of that on that. And then obviously, most importantly for me now is becoming a dad, which our baby's due in February.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, that's exciting, and I can't wait. And I've been following your social media, and I'm glad we're not doing this in February, because you probably it would never have happened anyway around that time.
Be busy.
Yeah, but no, it's good. I'm happy for you guys. I'm so excited for you, and I feel like having the baby is probably going to force you to slow down more than ever, at least initially, anyway. And it's been really cool having you on, Lachlan. Thank you so much. And I've learned a lot, and I feel anyone listening to this has guaranteed they've taken at least something away, and especially that the scorecard. I'm going to really encourage even my clients to start trying it out, and just to build awareness, and just to make them have a read. And just like what you see on your website, whether someone's thriving or drifting, just to create that awareness, and maybe and hopefully encourage them to take the next step to do something about it. So Lachlan, I like to finish all my episodes off with a dad joke. Hope you're ready for this one.
I cannot wait, if I'm being honest.
What is an avocado's favorite music genre? Guac and roll.
I was going to say, like, I forgot it. I don't know.
I forgot it. It was actually a lady said it at my daughter's music thing that she had this week. There was like there was like moments between the sessions, and she just had all these jokes she was popping out, and I'm sitting there with like my phone writing all these jokes down. But
I was like, do you carry a little notebook in your front pocket and just write those down when you hear them?
I should honestly. It's
then publish it.
Yeah, no, it's are you a dad joke person, or?
Oh mate, I'm the worst. My wife gets very sick of me doing dad jokes and puns.
It's there's a video I used to watch these guys on YouTube. They sit in front of each other. I don't know if you've seen it, and they just have a straight face, and they just say these dad jokes without laughing. And then it's the funniest thing. You just see them just sitting there staring at each other, and the first to laugh loses. And it's just so funny. And they just say the joke so slowly to the other person. And yeah,
there's those blokes in America who generally will sit in like different places. Maybe it's on like a fishing dock or a boat dock.
Sorry. That's the one.
Yeah. They're hilarious. They're so freaking good.
Yeah. No, sweet.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really enjoyable being able to come on here and hopefully add some value to the people that support you.
Yeah, likewise. And I can't wait to be on your podcast soon as well.
Yeah, for everyone
Yeah.
listening, it's going to be a very, very fun deep dive. So I'm really, really excited for that.
Yeah. No, can't wait. Can't wait. And I'll drop that actually. I'll put that in the description of this episode as well. The link to your podcast so people can check that out.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you,
again,
Michael.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.